Lobster Productions.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern-day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, aka the Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, a little reminder, sometime around the 30-minute mark, we're going to be going live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad, where you can sign up for whatever tier you'd like, continue enjoying this episode, engaging in the live chat, and also gaining early access to Sorry,
go ahead, David. I mean,
get
listen,
it out.
What are you getting paid for at this point?
I don't know, really.
This is what you do. Just
End
go
the
ahead.
show. End the show. Just end the show. All right.
Just go.
Early access, ladies and gentlemen, to episodes before they drop. And also when we drop tickets to things like Bohemian Grove, you guys are going to get first dibs, which is
pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Joining us today is Izzy Griffin. Izzy, before we get into today's show, let everybody know where they can find your work and what it is you do.
Yeah, so most of my, if you want the real, you got to go to my Patreon, patreon.com/Izzy N Griffin. I do have samples on YouTube and X, I guess, Twitter, and I post a ton on Instagram. I'm pretty popping on Instagram, but I do these like full breakdowns, fully sourced. I research my ass off every single day for everybody, and I just basically try to find the esoteric and occult underpinnings of what's going on within pop culture. I focus mostly on the music industry. I am a musician. I started doing music again about a year ago. So yeah, I'm just fully in it, and I'm just bringing the deepest truths I can possibly bring, and I go so deep. I go super deep. So
what's your handle on Instagram? Because you're crushing on Instagram. I was checking you out the other day, and I was like, damn, dude, this dude he's doing work.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's the same thing at Izzy N Griffin on Instagram. Yeah, and I have stuff on YouTube, but like I said, Patreon is where you get like the jouissance, as I call it.
I've never heard that word in my life.
What that is, but I like it. Yeah,
God damn,
I don't know what it means either. I just heard someone say it once. I started saying it.
So check this out, Izzy. We were, currently big fans of Tinfoil Hat, and we heard your.
It's like we were, but not
we were
anymore.
not anymore. We're now No, that's not true. And we heard your Sabrina Carpenter episode, which I thought was fantastic, and I said we have to get this guy on the show, derail him constantly, because we have all kinds of questions about this.
Yeah.
And I know just based off of looking at your content, you kind of go everywhere. You have something to say about everything, and it's something fascinating to say. So I kind of want to start with this Sabrina Carpenter thing. We beat to death on this show the topic of Crowley and Jack Parsons, and what they were doing in the desert, him and L. Ron Hubbard jerking each other off, doing the so I would love to talk about that, because when I heard you mention how Sabrina Carpenter plugs into all this, I thought, damn, dude, I didn't see that. It's just nice. It's refreshing when somebody has a take that is fascinating, it's backed by information, and it's something you haven't heard yet.
It's also something where it's like, I'm buying all this Sabrina Carpenter merch. It's all over my house. And I know, like you see her everywhere, and it's just one of those things where you're like, it's another kind of like teeny bopper, like pop star that's not really doing anything special, but she's everywhere, and it's I want to know why, because I'm also a musician, so like when I listen to like especially popular music, I'm constantly saying, what's so good about this? And most of the time it's nothing. It's they're gonna give you the money chords, and you're going to get the same formula over and over again, but they choose their people.
Yeah. So, okay. So this is going to be great for you guys. So I can answer your question as to why the pop music that is out now is out. We'll get there. I have like a whole thing I've just recently done on that, and it's really fascinating, like literally mind blowing. But yeah, we could talk about the Sabrina Carpenter stuff first too. So like basically with Sabrina Carpenter, I did a bunch of research on it, and it's really insane. It ties into Jack Parsons. Her parents are, well, it's hard to say. She has family members that are Scientologists. Nancy Cartwright is her aunt, who is the voice of Bart Simpson. And there were all these articles written about how Sabrina Carpenter is going to be essentially the next Tom Cruise of Scientology. She's came out and said that she's not a Scientologist. I personally don't buy that. I don't really know. But yeah, there's a lot of really strange connections going back to a lot of with that. Let me kind of look at my notes with that as far as Sabrina Carpenter.
As you
guys want to get started with on that in particular?
I mean, we had this older theory that was very loose. It was, I mean, it's super loose conspiracy when we were doing the deep dive into Andrija Puharich.
Right.
And we did some research about like, so this guy was developing, it's like a voice to skull technology stuff through dental implants, which is where you get the term tinfoil hat from. Like people were wrapping their heads in tinfoil in order to block the radio waves. And L. Ron Hubbard, before he developed Scientology, had a life-changing event on in the dentist. And I'm like, that's really interesting.
Was it a near-death experience, right?
It's like a near-death experience, but then afterward, he started to, that's when he started to get these communications and then create the religion of Scientology. So I'm like, very suspicious. I don't know exactly where to put that, but all the rest of Scientology, kind of, as it follows, is very strange, and the people around it. So it's just another one that I'm putting in the bucket for later to look at and say, a lot of in that bucket.
Yeah, for the longest time, I kind of looked at Scientology as just like another, it's not another run-of-the-mill cult, right? Because of the amount of influence that they have in Hollywood, but it didn't strike me as massively significant until you start looking at L. Ron Hubbard in particular, right? Because a long time ago, I was watching Joe Rogan, and he almost made me look away from Scientology. And the reason that the way that he did that was by saying that L. Ron Hubbard was one of the most prolific science fiction writers out there, and that so much of his work, wasn't a banger at all. It just kind of flew under the radar, but he still wrote a ton of science fiction books. And then all of a sudden he ends up becoming a cult leader. So, it sort of looks like a guy who's just trying to be successful in a bunch of different avenues, and then that goes to bed because he can't get a book, that's going to be a big book for the life of him. And then he ends up creating a cult. So it almost looks like a guy who's just, but then all of a sudden you find out that he's tied into all of these various situations, including the whole Jack Parsons thing. And you go, maybe this is a little bit more nefarious. Yeah, maybe that's the question, Izzy, is like, what do you think Scientology is? Because I don't think it's just a kind of a run of the mill cult.
I think, so here's what I think, like Hollywood in particular in the entertainment industry has various factions that are running things behind the scenes, and each one is vying for their own position, right? And what I think Scientology is I think Scientology works hand in hand with Aleister Crowley's religion, Thelema, and that's basically what I think Scientology is. It's just another faction, right? And so like where Sabrina Carpenter comes in is they essentially think that she is the embodiment of a deity named Babylon from Aleister Crowley's Thelemic religion. So Aleister Crowley actually created his own mythos and his own pantheon mythology related to his religion, and the rituals that they would do. So in 1946, Parsons, in addition to L. Ron Hubbard, did these Babylon working rituals, right? And they actually, I have a ton of stuff that links them actually thinking Sabrina Carpenter is the embodiment of Babylon, and Babylon is essentially Thelema's and Crowley's idea of the divine feminine. So that's kind of what I think that is. And the thing is people don't know that Parsons used to like live in the OTO and in one of Crowley's like secret societies that he was like the head of it, and he like lived with him in like a live-in cult. So that was a thing too. Yeah. But when it comes to
say, Izzy, that it seems like right now we're like in the middle of this massive divine feminine push. So like a lot of the back in the day, it would be like the symbolism you would see if you were doing like a deep dive on like a music video or something like that. It would be like all seeing eyes and kind of the Baphomet, right? You would see goat heads and this and that. And then lately, what I've been seeing instead is this thing that I don't know, it's like I'm colloquially calling it like the spirit of Lilith, right? And I think that's just because like a lack of a better term or maybe not enough information to really define what it is. Some people are saying Sophia. I'm having a hard time separating those two things, but it's like this inverted triangle, right? So it's like
can't do that now.
They can't do that. Yeah, I'm not allowed to do the inverted triangle on my show anymore because the Freemasons pay me. Right. So, but it seems like for example, the Super Bowl that we just had, right? So I was getting obsessed with the Orphic egg, and Caesar's Superdome looks like an egg from, an aerial view. So I thought maybe something significant was going to happen at the Super Bowl. And you had Donald Trump being the first sitting president at a Super Bowl ever. So I was like, this is it, dude. Something's going to happen. And then he's ushering in the golden age, right? That's the language that he's using for his campaign. It just so happens like the first, emperor of Rome or whatever ushered in what they considered a golden age. I guess if it was intellectually and financially, they considered it a golden age. So I'm looking at all these alignments and I'm like, something's going to happen. And then they do their Freemasonic ritual or whatever the hell they do. And it seems to be almost unimpressive. It seems to be focused on this like divine feminine angle. So you have like eventually, what's the lady's name that played? I don't know. It was just like a female artist, black lady. She performed at the Super Bowl adjacent to Kendrick Lamar.
Rihanna?
No, I don't think it was Rihanna. I forgot what the hell. There was the one that we just had like a year ago. It's something. It's like SZN.
Oh, SZA. SZA, yeah.
Is that's a thing? Okay, so SZA.
Yeah.
SZA comes out, and she's in an inverted triangle. That's her stage, is an inverted triangle. And so the whole thing looks like it's this, ritual that has something to do with the divine feminine. And then the Super Bowl commercial that plays is a female football player, and she's got the number 7 on, which, 77 or something like that, has something to do with, so maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it has something to do with this divine feminine. She's number 77, and she's plowing through all these dudes. She's juking them, they're falling, and I'm just seeing all these elements, and I'm wondering, like, is it a coincidence, given your information, potentially Sabrina Carpenter being the embodiment of the divine feminine Babylon? And then you look around and culturally, it seems like we're being saturated in it. Strong female leads left and right constantly. What do you think?
Yeah. So that ties into basically Crowley wrote about this thing. The Aeon of Horus is essentially what he believed we were moving into. And it ties into the age of Aquarius, right? The Aquarius is, it's the person pouring out water. Sometimes it's depicted as a man. Sometimes it's depicted as a woman. So what this sort of ties into, as far as the divine feminine, you're right. Like an example is like the Katy Perry space launch, how they're all women and they're all going into space. Well, Crowley's idea of the divine feminine, he has several different deities that he sort of, describes and that he's created. And one of them is represented by space itself. So space, right, is a representation of the divine feminine because it's that which receives. So the rocket literally going into space would represent the masculine going into this empty void, this vastness, and it's being received by space, which would be represented by the divine feminine. That's why everybody in that shuttle was a woman, right? And that's why they had the logos and the patches. They weren't really a Baphomet thing. It's more in line with kind of it's a Thelemic thing, right? Like literally, like all of Hollywood is this big Thelemic thing. Insofar as one of the logos and the slogans of Thelema was everyone is a star. Every man and every woman is a star. That's why we call celebrities stars. And so part of the divine masculine to Crowley would then be like that of a star or something like that. There's a bunch of stuff on it. It's like, it's really interesting. So much so, like, have you noticed this push in the music industry too? You remember we had like Wet and like all those
Of course. Who could forget Wet
right? So think of it as like Nicki Minaj. We had WAP, Meg Thee Stallion, all of these people. They were really degrading women, right? It was a degradation of women. So I write about this, right? And I'm talking about how we're moving into this new age, this Aeon of Horus, and this new age. I call it the meta Aeon of Lucifer, right? Because essentially this age of Aquarius is an air sign. Lucifer is the god of the airways, right? But what we see is this degradation now being shifted into a woman empowerment, like you're describing, right? If you think of artists like, and I'm not sure if you know who they are because you didn't know who SZA was, but like Doce is like the forefront of like the women's music, right? And it's all about female empowerment, woman empowerment. We have like Billie Eilish, we have Lorde, we have all of these things that are, it's a flip from the degradation of libidinal energy into the glorification and the pride of women, the empowered feminine, right? That's why it was so powerful when Katy Perry and all those broads went to space, right? But here's the thing. As we're moving into this age of Lucifer, as I'm calling it, it's what caused Lucifer to fall?
Pride.
His pride, right? So what we're going to be seeing specifically in the music industry, which music you could say is carried through the air, right? It's empowerment. It's going to be women pride. That's what you're going to be seeing a lot of, to answer that question.
That's fascinating because I don't know if you've seen this trend. There's a lot of feminist movements, especially in Europe. And when they get out and they mobilize, the way that they, I guess, stand in defiance against the patriarchy or unfair is by whipping their out like every single time.
And over-sexualization.
Yeah. And I go, that's an interesting. And I know that there's this idea that in the 60s or 70s, one of the early feminism movements was named Lilith after, the Lilith. And I guess,
well, I think it was one of the first feminist magazines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they named it Lilith. It's like, it's always right on the nose. Like, they always know the esoteric nature of what they're doing. And then we're supposed to, I don't know, I suppose we're supposed to act like they're not pointing at this stuff consistently and just continue to follow whatever the mainstream narrative is. It's nonsense.
It's interesting you're talking about Lilith, right? So Lilith is a part of, it ties really into like what I have prepped for you guys, because I have some fire. I have some fire just for you guys. Like,
how'd you know we were both on prep?
Yeah. Is this what this is right now? That's what this is. Okay.
Welcome to Nephilim Death Squad.
This is an intervention.
Right. That's funny, man. So you guys are familiar with Kabbalah, right? Or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys know about the tree of life. You know what it looks like? So the Kabbalistic tree of life, so each of those circles, right? So to anyone listening right now, if you want to, you could pull this up in a tab and just look up Kabbalah tree of life. Each of those circles is called a Sephiroth or a Sephiro, right? And each one of those represents an emanation of light from God, right? That's what they're supposed to represent. And as you go down the tree of life, you go down the tree of life due to desire. Each of these desires brings you further and further away, right? Oh, you guys have it. That's so sick. Yeah, so as you can see, each one of those pathways is also represented by a tarot card as well. And this ties in perfectly into what we're going to talk about, and to answer your question as to why music kind of sucks now. So as we're going down, there's actually the esoteric principle. The as above, so below. You've heard that before?
Yeah, yeah.
There's
I've
also
taken that to kind of mean like it's an obvious observable fact about the realm that we inhabit, and quantum science has kind of dictated like, there's a fractal nature to reality. So even science, like as deep as you go, it emulates, the micro emulates the macro. So in some ways,
it's everywhere, dude. Like even we're actually doing a documentary about primary waters, like deep underground waters. And it's just like, the Bible mentions the waters above and the waters below. And I always thought that meant it could mean like outer space and that whatever etheric liquid is out there. But I just think they're talking about like, dude, waters above and there's literally waters below. So it's just like, that's the bath. I saw your video about the Baphomet thing today. It's pretty hilarious.
Oh, dude, that was very funny, by the way. That video crushes.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. But so like, with the Kabbalah, there's also the tree of death. So the as above, so below, everything is the micro to the macro, but everything is also an inversion. So there's also a tree of death, which is the opposite, right? So it's not the emanations of light. It's actually the emanations of desire. And one of those sephirots is labeled Lilith, right? So essentially meaning that there is an actual archetypal thing happening within reality right now that is exactly what you guys are talking about and wondering. It's literally like a staple of that reality, because you're talking about, like you were just mentioning how reality is quantum and it's fractal. That's what the Kabbalah literally represented to these ancient mystics who were trying to practice magic and were practicing magic, right? But that's essentially what it is.
Let me ask you this, Izzy. Talking about the whole L. Ron Hubbard situation and then Aleister Crowley's Thelema, and you're saying that he sort of created these deities, Babylon, and it's a pantheon of other ones. He created a new pantheon. Do you think that this is created in the sense of like original thought forms or tulpas that didn't exist before, and then he's creating them, and then they are existing in some way, shape, or form? Or is this a rebranding of pre-existing? Because it seems like these entities obscure their names throughout history, their identities throughout history, and one thing will be Baal Hadad in Sumer or whatever, and then it'll be Zeus in Greek mythology. Is he really creating his own thing, or is he just creating a new form of identities for these pre-existing entities to inhabit?
Yeah. So one thing I talk about a lot, I just did a 3-part series on Rick Rubin and someone I called the modern day Aleister Crowley, right? And one thing I talk about in this series is what makes an occultist famous is their ability to rebrand occultic ideas for a contemporary modern audience, right? So that is what it's always a recycling and a rehashing and a changing of the language of these old things, these archetypal deities, these archetypal truths that they're never changing, but they're constantly being recycled. But the thing that we have going on now that changes that actually is we have the internet now, which they didn't have 100 years ago, right? So when Crowley was operating in the early 1900s and he was utilizing print and he was talking about this pantheon and creating this literal religion, what we have now is we have the internet, which is actually its own literal matrix, its own literal reality. And what we're having happen is this new aeon, this new age we're living in, this age of Aquarius, what I'm calling the meta-aeon of Lucifer, this matrix is now reflecting itself back into reality. And what's happening is these archetypal truths are now, reality used to directly mimic the Kabbalah, right? So like you have these archetypes like the fool or the magician. You have these things that are these truths that mirror themselves in storytelling and fiction and in reality, right? People mirror these archetypes in life. But now what we're having is we're actually having an inversion of that, and reality is now mimicking the matrix, and we actually are having the tree of death emanating in real life. Right. So
that's very heavy. I can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because that there's a lot of concepts that escape. I'm a simple man.
Yeah. So this is what I have. This is what I kind of brought for you guys. So the tree of life, right? The Kabbalistic tree of life is a way you can view reality to sort of understand it, right? You have these archetypes that exist, right? So, for example, the fool's journey. The fool's journey is this, this old archetypal story that the foolish person could eventually turn into a master, right? The person who doesn't really know what their path is, if they find their path, suddenly they can become a master of their own reality, right? Like that's mirrored in tarot, that's mirrored in the Kabbalah, like you guys just showed. So this fool, right? This fool, it exists in reality. It is an archetypal structure that exists. But now what we're having is we have the internet, which is the inversion of reality. And it's now, we don't have the fool. We have a bastardized version of the fool because the internet is morphing and it's diseasing these archetypes that we actually have, right? So if we look at these sort of fractals of like God that exist as these archetypes, they become diseased and they become sickened through the internet and they become cheapened. And then those things start to become what we see in reality. That's what we see in real life, because people are now, they're not embodying the truths they see in reality. They're embodying the fake truths that they see on the internet. Right.
Oh, that's interesting. So
It's actually really heavy.
It is, and it's something that I've been talking about where not only do you get algorithmically siloed into different, let's say like political ideologies or anything like that, but we seem to have built within our nature this desire to emulate what we see. For example, when I was a kid, I went through a really upsetting phase where I would not stop emulating Jack Sparrow in my movements. It's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing.
Sick, dude. I love that.
Intolerable now.
It was the worst. I don't even know what I was doing. I was, constantly moving my hand. But if that is the case, then what you're then getting is all of these new archetypes from the internet. And not only are you getting new ones, but you're getting them in mass, and we're cycling through them super rapidly. So, my son, for example, if I let him watch like some gamer or whatever, some of them aren't on YouTube. They have, because I don't let my kid watch YouTube, but he's got like some of them get channels on Hulu. Mm-hmm. And if I let him watch that, you'll very quickly hear him emulating, their style.
And then what are they emulating is the question.
Right. And so what he ends up emulating is a watered down version, because his father is a 35-year-old man who is plugged into the internet for his occupation. He is emulating a watered down version of meme culture. And that's really strange, because I know, when we talk about like memetic warfare or meme culture in general, it's like high level spell casting.
Look at what, we've done a lot of work, or at least a lot of thought on what the fool is. And I think Owen Benjamin told us that like we play the role of the holy fool.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, that's like a more Russian archetype. But the role of the fool would be similar to the role of the jester, and he's the guy that speaks truth to the king. And we talk a lot about that role being completely abdicated by most comedians. Sam Tripoli, Owen Benjamin, there's like maybe a handful of other ones that are actually telling the truth, like telling a very hard truth, and they're paying a cost for it, whether it be shadow banning or, just taking off of their payment processors in general. But then you think about why they've been removed, and now what the fool is representing. The fool is representing this like conglomerate of whatever Netflix has asked for, and what is Netflix asking for, and why are they asking for it? And then that becomes like meme. That's meme culture. Now you have like Matt Rife out there, and you have a million people that are emulating him. Yeah. And as Izzy is saying, it gets so watered down that it's like, well, what is this?
The way that I understand the fool is sort of, if there's like a reductive way of understanding it, it's like, Izzy saying he becomes the master, or maybe you could say that interchangeably with like the hero, but it's like the fool in so many ways is almost too foolish to realize that his endeavor is monumental. And so it's like, if he was any smarter, he would be afraid. And so in that way, it's kind of like, you talk about the holy fool. If the Bible says fear not, then the fool has that mechanism. He's too stupid to be afraid.
Yeah.
Is kind of the way that I look at it. And that lack of fear, because if he sat there and measured out, if he knew what he was setting out the door to achieve,
he wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't do it, right? And so that stupidity or that foolishness is what allows him to then achieve, being a master or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting you guys start talking about comedy because the next video series I'm doing is literally on that. And it's talking about how we're living in this age of inversion. So the fool, as you're saying, like what Owen Benjamin said, he used to whisper truths to the king, right? Like there's this example I use of this, there was this jester from France, I believe, and he slapped the king, and the king was like, holy, and they laughed it off because it was fun. He's funny, right? And it's the jester used to be this individual who could actually check the king, right? He could check him. He could put him in his place and sort of do the bidding of the sort of collective consciousness thought of that realm or kingdom, right? But now what we have outside of a select few is we have the fool is now the fool king, right? The fool is now doing the bidding of the king, of whoever it is that is on their show or whatever, right? So they've become mouthpieces, whereas before they were these sort of bearers of truth in a roundabout way that looked a little bit different, right? And so it's almost this sick and twisted inversion where there has been, like, the comedian is now sort of looked at as this bastion of truth when really their role is to be silly or whatever, right? So it's almost like imagine if you went to like an alien planet and you're trying to understand their society, and there's this small role of these people who are supposed to not be taken seriously, and they're the people who are now the mouthpiece of truth. You'd be like, that's kind of weird. That doesn't really make much sense, right? But that's not what we have, because what we have, the age we are in, is the inversion of all of the traditional archetypes that are and that exist.
It also seems like the fool would have a no real problem abstaining from ego, because ego will get in the way of your analysis of many things. It'll get in the way of the truth as it passes through you, potentially as a filter, and then you become a mouthpiece. And as it passes through you, your ego screws it all up, right? So the fool doesn't really have too much of an ego. So in some ways, it makes a lot of sense that the fool would kind of be akin to the jester, and the jester would be, speaking the truth. But I want to bring it back to this conversation about Sabrina Carpenter.
Well, yeah, I actually had a question. So
Go ahead.
When you asked Izzy about the embodiment, Izzy said that it's just replicating things that already exist. It's always like a rebranding.
Yeah.
In your opinion, Izzy, though, somebody like Sabrina Carpenter, do you think that this is a person that is found? Like, does she have like certain characteristics that they notice afterward, or is this somebody that is literally created? It's like
in her case, she's created. So yeah, she's created in her case. And I don't think that these people are aware. I don't think she's aware of what's going on behind the scenes. And obviously it's kind of crazy to say that she's the embodiment of Babylon or whatever. It's not so much whether she is or she isn't. There are people who believe that she is, and that have created this system around her to where that is the reality that they live in, right? So it's like for example, in her early music videos, her first album was titled Eyes Wide Open. And the first 4 music videos she did, it's like she's mimicking being MKUltra. She's like literally being MKUltra. They show her wearing clothes that were like a part of this big art piece, this like art collective that this woman did who was sexually abused in the Epstein stuff. Really, like if you look, it's all there, right? And so, Eyes Wide Open, and then there's all of these references and all of these connections to Stanley Kubrick's movie Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, it's like all like super spelled out, so it's really crazy.
Now that idea again of when you were saying this on Tinfoil Hat, I'm talking back to my phone, and you guys can't hear me, but the idea of MKUltra tying into what, she's basically an MKUltra little kitten, but her ties to Scientology. if these ties actually do go back from L. Ron Hubbard, his surgery, to Andrija Puharich, and this all happens around the 50s, right around that same kind of time where all the stuff starts sprouting and developing. Andrija Puharich is basically the godfather of MKUltra. So it's almost all directly in line where you're getting marching orders from some dude that is planting a seed, and then it goes all the way down to current day. It's a very bizarre thought.
No, yeah, 100%. I definitely think that's all. It's all tied in. It always is.
It's weird to say that that she's unaware, because that's often the question, right? When you look at all this like symbolism surrounding an individual, especially in the music industry or Hollywood, and you go, do they know what they're doing, what they're implicated in, what they're moving along? And she had an interview not long ago where I don't know if she was doing an album or something like that, and it's got something to do with a movie about, and she's naming her album, I believe it's her album, after this movie. And then like, I don't know if she shoots a music video or something like that, but there's like elements from the movie. Long story short.
Oh, she did So she did a photo shoot. She did a Lolita photo shoot, and she did the same. She recreated scenes of Lolita like directly in this photo shoot. Yeah.
Right. And Lolita is basically a movie about a dude in love with like an underage girl. It's like preteen or something like that. And it's also obviously like the Lolita Express, or even within anime, there's a subdivision of anime called Loli or Lolly. I don't know how it's phonetically pronounced.
Why do you know that?
Because I was doing an episode of Timeline Cleanse, and we were watching a man dressed as a woman who was a children's school bus driver, and he chose for his name Lolly or Loli. And there were some people that were dropping their kids off that were like, they knew what this meant, and they're looking at this grown Asian man dressed like a child, a girl, a little girl. He's got like pigtails and a dress or like a skirt, and they're going, why did you choose that name? What are you doing here? You can't be the bus driver. Yada. So I'm confused, and the chat's like, dude, this is like one person's like, this has something to do with anime, where they infantilize, that might be a word I made up, the characters. They make them like little kids, right? But that's weird. And there's like,
well, it's talking about infantilization.
Infantilization, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Somebody knows words.
That's very much what's going on with Sabrina Carpenter. With like she's got like this big head and like very tiny lollipop body, but like it's childish. Like I think she's supposed to be attractive to men, but when I look at her, I just feel like a little off-put.
She is. She's a little under. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a purposeful infantilization. And it's crazy enough that actually ties directly to Crowley, because basically, we'll go here. So first of all, like Crowley's Aeon of Horus, right? Within his pantheon, it's depicted by the crowned child, and essentially the crowned child is the product of the divine feminine and the male figure, right? And the crowned child, the point of the Aeon of Horus is that you are supposed to embody this childlike energy, which is why Sabrina Carpenter has a Fortnite skin, which is why they have Sabrina Carpenter Happy Meal, and it's all the reason that they're going after the children. A part of it is because it is a harnessing of the childlike libidinal energy. That's what it is. So the reason, right? Like there's a clip, and it's all over my Instagram, of Sabrina Carpenter flirting with a 16-year-old at a concert. So she has this bit where she will start flirting with a fan, and it's usually a girl, right? And the girl says, like, I'm 16. Like, she knows what Sabrina Carpenter is going to do. And she just steams past it and starts asking her if she's horny. She starts asking her all these really crazy questions. And what that is it is a, you guys have both been 16. I've been 16. When you're a teenager, I blew right past it. I was born. Yeah, I skipped that. Like a guy lying about skipping 5th grade. I went straight to middle school. Right? No, but like when you're a hormonal teenager, your brain is up. There's a ton of energy that is just all over the place, and they're literally harnessing it by sexualizing, children and doing all of these things. That's what that is. It's a literal thelemic harnessing of libidinal energy.
So that's what gets me, is going back to what I was getting towards before. She claims that she doesn't know. So when they bring up this whole like Lolita thing, she's like, "Oh, I didn't know." But then she's doing that to the audience members, and it's like I can't free her of accountability in any way, shape, or form. Because when you tell me that, right, that she's doing that bit with the audience members and she's blowing past the fact that they're 16 and then she's asking if they're, horny. Like, dude, this girl knows exactly that. How, I don't believe that you get to be in those positions without being a pretty remarkable person.
I think she does know. I think she knows on an intimate level. I did watch your episode when you're talking about Rosemary's Baby, and they're referencing the crib that would be perfect for Sabrina. And to reference back to like episode 160 of our show, we had on Nathaniel Gillis. We also had on Randy Goodwin, who's talking about SRA. And they go into this idea of like necronetics and how this, like during satanic ritual abuse, some of these elites will do rituals, like, kind of like Crowleyistic rituals to conceive a child. And with like when the mother's pregnant, there are ceremonies and rituals performed while she's pregnant. They're performed when the baby is delivered, and it's all to kind of like encapsulate the baby's soul, as if they're preparing a vessel. And I think they do this they do this a lot, and I think that their success rate is fairly low. Like it's all Nephilim, but when they do find a good vessel, somebody like a Sabrina Carpenter, maybe it's just a huge head or something like that. Then they know, and then this is the person that they're going to push to the forefront. So I think if they know, she knows, because she's like from birth. If you are the star child, or whatever you like to call it,
moon child, whatever.
Yeah, I think you have to know, and I think that you're then trained.
You know who I think is the moon child? Is Paris Hilton's baby with the big ass head.
That's huge.
That baby's got a big ass head. There's a lot of room for spirits in that head.
See, I feel like and part of the reason I say that she may not know is just because like I get so many people who are like, there's no way she knows. And it's like it's a way to just be like, well, maybe she doesn't. I don't know. Like there are people who do know, I don't think my point with that is like whether she knows or not it doesn't really matter, because it's what it is, and it's what it's presenting itself as. Right. Like a kind of crazy thing with me, actually, that's very tangential. My father was signed to Geffen in the 90s, and there was some weird things.
What's Geffen?
Geffen Records, David Geffen. It's now called Interscope.
That's huge.
He was signed to Geffen. He
Shout out
toured
to
with
Jimmy Iovine.
Yeah, John Bon Jovi. My dad was like a big musician. And part of the reason he left the industry was my mom got pregnant with me, and his manager was like a witch, and she was like trying to do weird with associated with my birth. And so my dad left the music industry.
Okay, wait. Hold on. We're at the 43-minute mark. I just realized that we've given poor people far too much content, and now you're talking about something incredibly fascinating, and I can't allow.
I thought we were on the Patreon, so I shouldn't.
No. You have to save the gravy for the people who actually pay, who care. All right, not these filthy pores.
Wow,
guys, Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad if you want to continue watching this episode. Otherwise, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. We're out of here, baby. Izzy, so what are we talking? Wait. Go back to the witch. Who was a witch?
One of my dad's managers, one of his managers. And the reason I'm saying this is because my dad told me this much later in life. So my dad told me about Project Bluebeam when I was 8 years old. I've been doing this forever. Okay.
Cool dad.
Yeah. My dad's, I don't know about cool. No, he's cool. But he told me about this when I was, my early 20s. And this is a crazy story. Hand to God. This is a true story. I'm a Christian. I would never say hand to God if I'm not telling the truth. One time my dad was like, you know what? I'm going to tell you everything. And I was like, okay. I was probably about 16 or 17. And he took me to a restaurant, and we sat down, and he started talking, and the power went out in the restaurant. And he was like, I guess I'm not supposed to tell you everything. And we never spoke about it again. But this is something that my dad told me. And he did say that they were trying to do some Malachian-esque with me and my birth. And that is partially why my real first name is Isaac. It's not Izzy. So Isaac, Abraham, the story of Abraham and Isaac, where, you know, you guys know the story. So my point is, you know, I didn't know that. And that's a super crazy thing. You have people like Eric Clapton, whose son mysteriously dies. This happens all the time. This happens to tons of musicians
people in the industry. So
you're saying that they were asking your dad to like basically sacrifice you, and he named you Isaac because didn't go through with it.
Because he was like, you guys, basically.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of speaks to, because you said a moment ago that you think they're doing this all the time, but they have a very low success rate. They probably literally are doing this all the time, but have a low success rate. So this thing, you know, you might not have any idea how many would-be candidates for some sort of archetype that we're talking about, whether Moonchild, Babylon, this or that.
We spoke with that dude Randy Goodwin, and he's an SRA deliverance minister. So like, you know, like a regular deliverance minister, but deals specifically with satanic ritual abuse. And I was like, hey man, if you're doing this kind of stuff, you must be getting a lot of heat, because you're basically going and you're taking these people have been working on they've been working on these like rituals with these specific subjects for a long time. And he's like, yeah, he's like, basically though, they come and I don't know how he explained it, but he's like, they come and they retrieve their knowledge or like whatever training that they put in them. I don't know how they do this. And he's like, and they're good. He said, but beside that, as long as like, I just got like, they lose somebody, fine, but they need to retrieve something from them, and then they can move on with the next subject. And it's just
interesting.
It's a crazy idea, right? To consider.
Yeah. That's super wild, man. Yeah. I'm interested in the whole thing. Cause like when this is like what got me researching all of this stuff more was when my dad told me this. And, you know, I was involved in the music industry too. I was in a band. I had a management deal and all this other crazy cool stuff. You know, and I had really bad substance abuse problems, so it didn't work out. But just seeing this and seeing the patterns constantly with so many artists, and then knowing sort of the inside side of it that I know from my dad and everything, it's just really, really crazy. Like, I think that there's a lot of bloodline going on as well. Like, you guys asked a question on Twitter the other day, and it was like, what's your favorite conspiracy theory? And one of mine has to do with my dad. And I don't know how true it is. Like it's very much just like a joke kind of topic amongst my family. But my dad, up until he's about mid-30s, looked identical to Jim Morrison. I mean, if I showed you two photos of him and Jim Morrison, you wouldn't even know the difference. You literally couldn't tell the difference. And my dad actually almost played Jim Morrison in Oliver Stone's depiction of The Doors. He was actually one of the original people that was going to be cast over whatever the guy's name is, because my dad looks so much like him. And the joke is that my dad is Jim Morrison's illegitimate son, because my grandmother lived in a town that he used to frequent when he would along Route 66 when he would drive his Mustang. And so I think they're super obsessed with bloodlines. They're super obsessed with that. They also love the idea of knowing things that the public doesn't know, because there's some sort of inversion trickery going on there. It's a lot of it. Yeah.
Can I ask you, going back to this whole Babylon spirit that supposedly Sabrina Carpenter is embodied, and I'd like you to walk us through a little bit about the things that cued you off to that, and then I'd like to get into what the implications of it are, because we're talking about like the divine feminine, which sounds like great for women, right? If you're a chick listening to this, you're like, oh yeah, that's what we need the realm to be ruled by the divine feminine, because women have been suppressed and this and that. So what are the implications of it? But before we get there, what else cued you into this idea that she is, this character?
So a lot of it, has to do with the Jack Parsons, the Working Babylon thing. And a lot of it just has to do with the various tie-ins to like throughout Sabrina Carpenter's career. So like, you know, she has all these music videos, like I was saying, that are tied to MKUltra that have all of these undertones of, you know, various different, I guess, things.
Does she sing Pink Pony Club?
That's Chapel Roan.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I saw somebody in the comments say that. I was like, that's a song for hoes.
No, yeah, definitely. That's funny. But yeah, it's like, so part of it was like the Eyes Wide Open title to her first thing. A ton of her videos were actually shot in Elks Lodges that were, you know, Freemasonic and owned by, you know, various secret fraternal orders. There's also this like really weird pattern of extreme violence in her music videos. So in one of the music videos, as I was talking about, there was her being MKUltra. There was 4 individuals, 4 men who were administering the MKUltra in the video. The next music video that came out after, she's like dancing in a church, and there's 4 coffins representing one of each of the men. One time she had a custom shirt made that had a quote from Lucifer from Paradise Lost on it that I thought was like super weird. And the quote from Lucifer, it's the first thing that he says in the book. And it's essentially a call to arms for all of the demons in the book. So essentially, right when Lucifer falls and he rises up, and he's like, he tells the demons basically like, are you going to be a bunch of pussies, or are you going to get up and fight with me? And like, we're going to rule Earth. It's basically what it is. Another one was before one of her music videos, the titling is the exact same font as the titling in Rosemary's Baby. It's the same exact font. And come to find out, what ends up happening in Rosemary's Baby right at the end is, so you guys know the little girl is abducted at the end of Rosemary's Baby, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's abducted by the people who are following Tom Cruise and the other lady around. There's also the Tom Cruise connection with Scientology. There's the article that's written saying she's going to be the next Tom Cruise. Very interesting. But essentially, in Rosemary's Baby, at the very end of it, there is this bassinet, right? And this bassinet is on the poster of Rosemary's Baby. It's like the main focus that's on there. And essentially the little girl runs over to her mom, and she's pointing at this bassinet that's from Rosemary's Baby, which is, you know, the font that's on the music video. And she goes, oh, Mom, we can fit Sabrina in there. And she points over to this bassinet, and it's like this super weird, like, okay. And Sabrina is the name that she gives this doll that she doesn't own, but that she wants her mother to buy her. That is the Barbie 1996 Sugar Plum Fairy doll, right? Well, later in Sabrina Carpenter, she has her own Christmas special on Netflix. And during this Christmas special, she's like doing normal things, and then all of a sudden the video pauses, and she's like holding a knife, and she's staring at the knife, and the Ballad of the Sugar Plum Fairy starts playing. It's the name of the song that starts playing behind her, and she's like entranced by this knife. And it's just like it's literally dozens and dozens of connections like that, like constantly.
Okay, I gotta ask you, and I'm not looking for you know, a straightforward answer here, but it is, what's on my mind is, it's obviously not Sabrina Carpenter who's orchestrating all of this, right? And to do that level of like callback, you know, we're talking about something that transcends generations. And oftentimes I will say that if you ask me who is pulling the strings, it's all spiritual, because there's no man that would be alive to see the fruits of his labor, because so many of these things, you want to talk about callbacks, outside of movies and music, you'll get callbacks that just happen on the world stage, but they're calling back to something that took place 100 or 200 or thousands of years ago. And it's like, there's no, I mean, yeah, there are shady organizations that are all jockeying for power and things of that nature, but this all feels that it's moved by a spirit that is ancient and doesn't die or hasn't died, yet, and is still kind of moving the chess pieces around. What do you think is going on there? Like who in the hell is, I think in music videos, like nothing is out of place. Nothing is put there accidentally. Everything is done with intention, and there's people that are hired to do it, and they're paid quite a bit of money to do it. Like, how is this happening?
The T-shirt that he's talking about is almost it's a huge tell. It's like they have to tell you where he's not talking about demons. I don't think Lucifer. I think he's talking to other fallen angels.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So these entities are the ones that are like this is the underpinning. This is why it's called Nephilim Death Squad. This is why we're constantly looking at this stuff, because obviously the Nephilim come from the fallen angel, and this long plan to the end of days is orchestrated by these guys. So it's like, it's almost like telling you directly, this is the marching order that I've gotten. Will you follow? And it's just crazy. It's crazy the timeline that we're in, because they're just out there saying it out loud, and it doesn't seem like anybody cares or cares to notice.
See, I feel like it's interesting, and I'll answer all the questions, but like I feel like it's not so much that nobody cares. People like me care, right? But it's so crazy, and it's so quote unquote coincidental that it's so easy for people to be like, oh, they just brush it off, because it is easier to live within the realm of fallen archetypes and fake, everything's fake. I'm happy with my goy slop. I'm happy with the trash. That's easy. What's really hard? What's really hard is to look at the artists that you might like and say, oh, this is a literal spiritual war for my eternal being, my eternal soul. Like, that's a pretty hard thing to do. That cognitive dissonance literally destroys people. And it's so much easier to go, man, that's fake. It's so easy. You know what I mean? And it's really annoying, but it's like, that's what these people do. And I think, to sort of answer your question, like, is it people meticulously placing every little thing and every little part of the video, and we're going to use this font because it's a callback? I don't think it matters if it's a meticulous, intentional thing or if it's not. If it is this amorphous sort of spiritual thing that it just happens, right? Like, almost like dominoes, right? Like, the first domino's been set, the first one's been knocked over, and there is just this spiritual thing where things just happen. I believe that reality is quantum. So I think it's both. I think that there are these people who do know, and then I think that there are people who might not necessarily know, but they're being guided by this sort of intuition, right? Like, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I make artistic choices that I don't know what is necessarily leading them all the time. And then sometimes I might figure it out later, and sometimes I don't, right? But I think that takes a prolific amount of discernment, and I think that most people don't have that. But I think there's a lot going on with it. And I do know one thing: good artists are extremely intentional. Everything is the way it is for a reason. So I think, to feign ignorance on her part when she goes like, I didn't know that, I don't know about the Lolita, that's stupid, right? Like, obviously she has a creative director team, and somebody knows somewhere. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's quantum. I have a weird outlook on reality. So
I got a question for you. As a I'm a musician as well, but like not to the level you are. I just play guitar. But how many of your thoughts do you think are your own?
None.
Nice.
Yeah, probably none of them. I think that when I'm truly, let's look at this. I'll answer this in a couple ways. When I'm truly artistically creating music, I think that there are various amorphous things that are trying to come out, like different voices. But I know, like, when I'm doing this, I have a joke on my soundboard. I have like a little button I press and it says like Holy Spirit activate. It's like a little meme. And because I literally think like some of this research that I do, it is so crazy how things come together. It could be nothing else other than a Holy Spirit divine thing. Like there's no way. Like truly. You know, I don't know.
No, I think that's fair. That's something that we talk about a lot.
It's a hard question. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, we kick around the idea that like 80% of your thoughts are not your own thoughts. Interesting to say that it could potentially be zero. But I mean, you know, the other thing that we talk about constantly is that artists throughout history have always channeled this or that, right? In Greek mythology, it was the muses. One of the things we like to say is that what's this guy's name? Carlos Santana says that he's channeling Metatron, right? When he's making his music. I think that was like a famous Time magazine interview or something like that. And then you only need to look at all of the various artists, musicians who have an alter ego that takes place while they're on stage, right? Beyonce's got Sasha Fierce, or even Eminem had an interesting thing. It was like in his album Relapse, he had a song, I forgot what it was called. It was either 3 a.m. or My Darling, but he names it and he calls it Rain Man.
Oh, Rain Man is Jay-Z as well. I mean,
yeah.
Rihanna brought that up. Yeah,
yes.
That's a fairly common entity.
Yeah, which if you look up, I remember there was something that I latched onto, and I got a definition for Rain Man. And I don't know, I have in my mind this Lovecraftian thing, this Yog Sothoth and the 13 globes, and I'm not sure if that's actually it, but either way, like the 13 globes were these entities, and one of them was Rain Man. He had a different name, but it was the same character supposedly. And either way, he was responsible for moving great deals of money across the earth, and also I think like fame and, you know, like that. But I go, oh, that's interesting. That seems like an apt one for Hollywood. So my point is, it's interesting that you say that, Izzy. It feels like a bunch of things they're jockeying for position to try to get in. You're the filter that they pass through. They want to manifest in this reality one way or another. They can't create, they can only inspire. And so it's fascinating you say that it's all very deliberate. It has to be deliberate, because if not, it's like what do they do that, like automatic writing or automatic drawing, where like people will channel a thing and they'll close their eyes and they'll just move the pen around the paper, and next thing you know, some art emerges, and it's like, well, that is the definition of it ain't you, homie. Something else is moving through you.
Yeah, no, this is like a perfect segue into what I got too. So like, yeah, first of all, what you're saying is interesting, because that's how I got the nickname Izzy, was like when I was in my band was called The Slumps. And you know, when I was the front man, and I used to be able to, like, I was a maniac, dude. I could drink literally like 40 beers, you know, so my nickname came from, they were like, oh, you're like Izzy Isborn, because you could drink like Ozzy, kind of a joke. That was the joke, and that's how I became Izzy. But like currently this project I'm writing is like, I'm writing about me and when I used to use drugs and when I was an addict. So it's like, I call it the gargoyle. So it's like, if I'm writing these like low vibrational songs about like I just dropped a song about cocaine, and it's like not promoting cocaine use, but I'm talking about this part of me that used to do a lot of blow, dude. Like, you know, it's like the gargoyle that's within me still. I'm sober now, but it's like, that's still in there. Like I could go on a bender right now. Like that exists, and it would be dishonest to not act like it's not in there. Right. But, you know, it's interesting because one thing that there's like the master of the music industry, Rick Rubin, right? And Rick Rubin, in his book that I have right here, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, okay, and it's a way of being. What a weird way to talk about creating. It's all about making art. And what I've done with his book is I've actually gone through and I have traced all of the different ideologies that he talks about in this book to occult and esoteric teachings. So I've done that. The whole book is just, like I was saying earlier about Crowley just rebranding the occult. This book is the same thing. But what Rick Rubin talks about, the key thing he talks about, is emptying yourself as a vessel and then channeling what he calls source. So it's just like you're saying, like how many thoughts do you believe are yours? Well, we have the guy who's considered one of the greatest producers, if not the greatest record producer of all time, talking about how he tells artists to empty themselves and to channel source. How many of these artists do you think are truly capable of channeling God? Right? Like, do you think that Jay-Z could sit down in pure silence and channel God, dude? I don't really think that that's happening, right? So,
well, that's an interesting thing too, because then it gets into the idea of meditation and meditation and yoga, and why these practices, they're commonly frowned upon by the Christian community.
Clear your mind.
Clear your mind.
Empty your vessel.
Exactly. Well, I mean, listen, as a Christian, you're supposed to be consistently filled with the Holy Spirit. If you're not, then you will be filled by something else. Sounds
100%.
gay, but is true. So you consistently, this is what they talk about. You're consistently having to fill up your cup, because if you're not filled, something else will slide in there. And it's really funny, because I know Rick Rubin I don't even think he knows much about music or plays an instrument. He's just a dude. So it's just odd.
Yeah, it's funny. I said that in one of my videos, and I had like 3,000 spurgs. Like, he actually played guitar on the Beastie Boys track. On the album, he does play guitar, which is like, that's not even the point. The point is that, so then why did he sit down with Anderson Cooper and tell the whole planet he doesn't play any instruments, right? Like, yeah, like
I will say too, just to on guitar players like myself, if you play guitar, most guitar players don't understand music. It's just a series of patterns and chord shapes that they can play. Most do not understand the theory behind it. To go and understand the theory behind it, like a piano player is more likely to understand this, because they're actually looking at this and doing the math of what music is and putting these things together. Guitar is like, it's shapes, it's chords, it's scales that you can, like, if you're on the 5th fret and you could play the minor pentatonic, you're in, whatever key, slide it up and down. You don't really have to know what you're doing, and it's kind of messed up. So whatever, just to on Rick Rubin a little bit more. All right, you played a couple of chords on
yeah,
100%. Now you're the guy, you're the music producer. All right, yeah,
right, yeah, and it's like, it's really interesting, because like the way I look at Rubin is what he does, right? So let's say he's telling these artists to empty the vessel, blah blah blah, right? We're talking earlier about archetypes, and the way that like Carl Jung talks about the archetypes is they exist underneath our ego, underneath consciousness. They exist under, like, if you're picturing an iceberg, right? There's consciousness, there's the subconscious, then there's the collective unconscious underneath that. He believes within the collective unconscious is where these archetypes lie. And the archetypes are essentially what connect all of us, right? We all have these archetypal experiences that connect us. Well, I believe that what Rick Rubin is trying to do is he's trying to get these artists to tap in to this realm of archetypes, so that way the music is better, right? So like, just like a comedian, if a comedian tells a joke, the funniest jokes are the ones that we relate to, right? The best music is when you hear it, you go, oh, I know what he's talking. I can relate to that. It's like a relatability. And the interesting thing that I found out with Rick Rubin is he's trying to tap into this realm of archetypes, right? And I think that it really worked for a really long time until recently. And I think what ended up happening is as we moved into this age of Aquarius, as I was talking about earlier, into this, what I call the meta aeon of Lucifer, right? What ended up happening is he can't reach that realm of archetypes anymore because it's changed. So what's happening is the archetypes are now becoming shells, and they're becoming diseased versions of themselves, right? So if we look at the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life that has these archetypes, the inverse of that is the Clifothic tree of death, right? With these diseased archetypes. Now Rick Rubin cannot tap into this realm of archetypes. He has to tap into a realm of the diseased archetypes to get the music sounding better, so that way people can actually relate to it, because the archetypes we all know aren't the same any longer.
They need a reset. They need a
like a great reset.
They desperately need a reset because they have. You're right. They've perverted things to such a level that these archetypes are degraded. You can't tell the story of the Lion King anymore. Like they retell it, but it has to have this divine feminine in it, and it doesn't make sense anymore. I think people at their base level understand the archetype, they understand the story, but when you start to pervert it, they hear it, but it doesn't resonate as soundly as it did before.
Yeah, I think the apex of that was like we did Lord of the Rings, and then it was like it's done.
Yeah,
it's
we're
all done after that. There's no more. You can't retell this story. I wonder.
I think the apex. I was actually talking to a guy at the coffee shop. I think the apex was 9/11. I think that was a great story. Great story. No, but like that ritual was when everything kind of fractured. Like that specific time in the world. Then you had like a huge blood sacrifice of millions of people in Iraq. We also uncovered some, ancient artifacts and like stargates in Iraq. So who knows what happened after that? But like that's the defining moment, in my opinion.
It's interesting too because in some ways the veil dropped off after that, where it started to become very obvious. Like I wonder, Izzy, your thoughts on these characters that
what's also interesting, very like schizophrenic of me.
Please.
Well, actually, I have two schizophrenic thoughts.
Okay.
First one, the veil thinning or almost tearing reminds me of Jesus dying, the veil tears in the temple. And then I think of Sabrina Carpenter, Jesus is a carpenter, completely schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Also,
no. You know what's funny? She literally, when she did that video in the Catholic Church, she got the priest fired of the church, and her joke was, well, Jesus was a carpenter. That's what she said. That's what she said when the public came after her. The public came after her, and she said, well, Jesus was a carpenter. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
They're doing they're doing all kinds of weird. They have that bald black chick doing She's Jesus now. Have you seen that? I've been trying not to even look at it because I recognize everything is designed to upset me, and I don't want to get into. But
one more thing before the completely
is it schizophrenic?
Completely schizophrenic. Please. I want to ask you guys though, are all of your clocks wrong? Like, I haven't seen a clock in the last couple of weeks that is correct.
Yeah,
it's been the craziest. Like we were at jiu-jitsu with the kids. Their clock is wrong from the clock on my phone. My clock in my car is off. My dad's clock is off. This clock is off.
It's interesting. My clock
is time moving different.
That's a great observation. Holy.
My computer at home is off from my cell phone, but they're both hooked up to the internet.
Why?
Well, I've literally stopped looking at clocks, and I wake up in the morning. I say, God, what time is it?
I look at the sun. I'm like, where's it? I say, where's the sun in the sky? And then I say, is that even the correct sun?
I go, yeah, which one is it? Is that the pale yellow one? There's two of them now.
The sundial, right?
Yeah, we need a sundial. So speaking of the veil dropping, right? And it's like all of the illusions are kind of shitty now. Thinning, right? All of a sudden, the music industry goes, you know what? Witches, and they just give you Marina Abramovic, and then they give you this other with the dark. She's got black fingers.
Michelle Lemmy,
yeah. So what is the point in toting them out to the public, in your opinion, and what greater implication do these women have in the music industry? Is this just like a mask off moment, or are we meant to believe that?
Yeah. So in this age that we're so blessed to live in, so it's Lucifer is the light bearer. He's the light bringer, right? It's the illumination. Everything's being illuminated. These ideas are everything I'm talking about right now. In 5-10 years, this will be like YouTube jargon. People will know this. I'm telling you right now. And the reason that they're being touted out is because it's the illumination of everything that's behind the veil. Right. That's what it is. It's knowledge. It's a false light. Right. Mm-hmm. We're going to start seeing the spirituality. It's going to be like new age, where it's going to be exactly what I'm talking about. And people are going to look at this as the light that is the light bearer. It's going to be the light that people see as the truth. But really what it is it's this synthetic false light. What the light that Lucifer brought, right? It's a torch. It's not, it's not the sun. The sun is the real light, right? And that's sort of what Kabbalah is. Kabbalah is a false light. It's a fallen human depiction, human explanation via magic of what God is. right? That's what the Kabbalah is. And now we're existing within the Qliphoth, which is the inverse of that, right? Which is now we have archetypes of the Matrix that are existing within real life, right? So much so that like Rick Rubin literally, he has a website called Tetragrammaton. Do you know what Tetragrammaton means? I'm guessing you guys do.
My cousin mentioned he's like he was a devout Jehovah's Witness, and he mentions the Tetragrammaton a bit, but I'm not sure exactly what it means.
It sounds like a geometry terminology.
It's like a depiction of God almost. From what I was trying to understand him, but I'm not quite sure. So break this down for us.
Yeah, so the Tetragrammaton, it's the Tetragrammaton is the true name of God, right? And it's the Hebrew name that is anywhere from 4 to 96 syllables long. And there are sort of like these rumors, these like ideas that if you say the full thing, you can literally bring things to life. There's a lot of stories about that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, we were just listening to this idea about writing the name of God on the forehead of a golem and animating the golem.
Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, but he starts this project, this blog called Tetragrammaton, right? And I'm looking at it, I'm reading this blog, and it's also like a podcast, where he interviews Peter Thiel, which is weird. And that ties in later to a bunch of other that I have. But basically it's sort of like a coven. And he started hiring all of these occultists to write for this blog, right, called Tetragrammaton. And it's essentially they're trying to uncover the different sides of God using the occult. Like they're trying to understand the sides of God. So he has this one guy in particular who I call the new Aleister Crowley. His name is Chris Gabriel. I've spoken to him. Very nice guy, super nice to me. I have nothing negative to say. He's very nice to me.
I have no desire to kill myself.
Let it be known, I will not commit suicide.
Yeah. And so what Chris has done is he, like Crowley, has created his own mythos and his own pantheon of the new diseased fallen archetypes. So he has his own pantheon of this to describe these new archetypes that are existing around us within look up meme analysis. I'm sorry. He has a YouTube channel called Meme Analysis.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but what Rick Rubin has done is Rick Rubin has hired him and he writes, these pieces about
this dude here, Asian looking dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah. Dude's like really, really smart, really brilliant. Like truly, really knows his. And, but yeah, like he's working with Rick Rubin and they're trying to like tap into this new Qliphothic realm of these diseased archetypes. And I personally believe that is really what is being injected into this new music is like the music now, like you've heard the term coworker music.
No.
Oh yeah. Like, safe for work music, in other words.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's kind of a meme. It's kind of a joke. Like the music it's like music your coworker would listen to because like your coworkers always listen to music you don't like, right? That's the joke. And it's this idea that like all of the music now is coworker music. We have people like Sabrina Carpenter, like we have Chapel Roan, Pink Pony Club Girl. We have Benson Boone. These artists where everything looks right, like everything looks like it should work. Like on paper, if I wrote down all the attributes of Sabrina Carpenter on paper and was like, hey, read this, does this sound like a pop star? You'd be like, yeah, right? But because we're in this like inversed, these archetypes are diseased and nothing works. It just like doesn't feel right? So it doesn't connect to real, true people like us who understand reality. We have this idea of God and we have these sort of more antiquated traditional ideas on reality. We existed before the internet. Like the new 15-year-olds who are loving Sabrina Carpenter, they're loving this like fallen thing that we can't even connect to or wrap our heads around because it is archetypally completely something we can't even spiritually comprehend.
That's really interesting because I've been like, what is the hype? I don't understand the hype. I don't understand the when it comes to the quality of the music, even how like beautiful she's supposed to be. I'm like, she's, you know, I don't want to get behind the meme of being like she's mid, right? Because that's like everything now is like she's mid. She's a pretty girl. I'm not saying she's not pretty, but it's like I expect more from Babylon is what I'm saying.
I think what Izzy's describing is like the idea of God. There was a lady again today at the coffee shop, and she got involved with the conversation, and she asked me like, "What is God? Like, what is God? What do you mean? What do you think?"
Man, that feels loaded. Is she trying to get you?
I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Should have kicked her in the chest.
I kind of got short with her, and I was like, "God's the truth. It's the logos. It's the word. It is you'll know it when you see it, kind of thing." And I think that with this music, like Izzy's describing here, I'm listening to the music, and I'm extremely perceptive of it. Like not just like on a musical construction sort of way where I can like, you know, I'll do it. I'll break this stuff down, and I'll be like, it's just more goy slop. But there's like some music that will move you, and it moves you because at the very core of it, whatever it is, it could even be pretty simple, like, you know, musically simple, but at the core of it, it's true. Something about it is
it's inspired by God,
right?
So you can tell what is and what isn't. Like, you know what does that for me? The Hallelujah version from Shrek 1. Man, that moves me, dude. That's a beautiful song.
Kanye's album, Jesus is King.
Yeah, that does.
A lot of that does. I'm like, I don't know why, but like, because I usually have a good sense of, especially Christian music. I'm like, I don't know. Some of this stuff feels a little bit like in the box.
When we were at the other service, and they had the missionaries from Puerto Rico, and that girl was singing, and like there was like 2 songs where I was like, these are legitimate bangers, dude. They were really good, and it wasn't like the music was tremendously executed, but it was like, damn, they're doing the thing, and that feels inspired by God. And then there's other crap that just feels like it's inspired by a machine. Well,
that's the thing.
And it's formulaic.
What we're getting now is it's like Izzy's describing. It's such a crazy thought. It's a description of a concept that is like a facade right in front of it. So like, if God is the truth here behind it, they've now created these archetypes that should point back and reflect to what God is, because all of these things are true within the human condition. But now we have a full like new set of them. Now we've got like 16 of them, and they're all fake.
And they've co-opted the archetypes, and they're trying to get them to point back to them.
Well, they're trying desperately to get them to make sense. And I wonder if they can. They can get them to make sense. I think they can, dude. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. You were on a roll. Sorry.
They can get them to make sense to a group of people indoctrinated enough to think that this is true. And I think that they're getting close to that.
Well, and that's what's going to happen, right? Like it makes sense to the, you know, Zoomer or even like the Gen Alpha kid who only understands like friendship through the internet. Like that kind of stuff makes sense to them. Like if I ask a 14-year-old kid, like, why does Travis Scott have a McDonald's meal? He's like, why wouldn't he? You know, like that's what they get it, right? Like I was a teacher for years. I was a teacher, and I worked with teenagers, and like I could literally see, like it happened during. I could see the shift, and like the light of the kid's eyes was gone. It was a total 180 from like when I started teaching, and I was like, oh, I have to get out of education. I can't do this anymore, because you're teaching a fake version of the fake version of reality to these kids that won't even acknowledge the truth. They don't even want it. Like, so it's like, it's just like you're saying, like God is truth. And, you know, I'm not like a Kabbalist or anything. I'm not like somebody who practices magic, but I understand why people think the Kabbalah or even the archetypes, they think that is the truth. That is a fallen depiction of trying to explain the truth, right? And so for so long that worked. doing this Kabbalistic magic worked, trying to tap into this archetypes worked. It doesn't work anymore because we've moved into a new age where it's the inverse of that. So the fallen version of that is what works now. And that's just going to continue to fractal out. And what is going to be seen as truth and as light is going to continue to become more and more synthetic as time goes on, until, like, we're a dying breed. This is going to end. This will be over, right? This is going to be like when we die, and then our kid, maybe even our kids die, right? It's going to continue, and it's just going to become more and more bastardized as time goes on, right?
Well, that's the idea, is that, and
that's what they want. Yeah.
Everybody's done this, from like Wall-E. Remember Wall-E, the Pixar movie, or even Mother Horse Eyes, what we were listening to recently. But the dystopian future is everybody is hooked up to some sort of synthetic reality. And it's like, you know, everything is chasing that dragon of like, how close can you get it? How close can you fine tune it and tweak it? Is there smells? Can you feel it? Does it feel right? You know, like everything is going to be about emulating and creating this fake reality. But I want to ask you, Izzy, what are the implications of this, like Sabrina Carpenter thing, right? So if we're trying to bring in archetypes that Aleister Crowley has coined, which are really just the rebranding of old archetypes or old entities, right? What's the end game in this? Where does this all go? If like Aleister Crowley has his way,
like specifically with Sabrina Carpenter, or just in general?
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, you bring into this realm Babylon, or you think you've done that. What then is the move? Do you just go like, all right, boys, we did it, high five? Or is she meant to do something?
See, that's the thing, is it's like, you're talking about this guy, like Crowley was this individual who, like, let's think about what Thelema was, right? Thelema, the main ideologies behind Thelema, it's literally to fall, like, thy will be done is literally this idea within Thelema, or I'm sorry, do as thou wilt. I'm sorry, I got that completely mixed up. Do as thou wilt is the slogan of Thelema. So the idea is to literally commune with your higher holy guardian angel, as he called it, to find your true will and to do your will. That is like what Thelema was, right? So when it comes to them trying to bring about Babylon, or trying to sort of summon these deities, the idea with Babylon is that she precursors the beast, right? Which is, he called himself the beast. So I think it's supposed to precursor some sort of apocalyptic thing. I don't really know. And is that what the goal with Sabrina Carpenter? I really don't know.
That's what I see with the beast system. When that's mentioned, that's like end time prophecy stuff. But what we have right now is this divine this very powerful feminine push. And we also see like it's almost like a result. It's obviously it's synthetic because it's a result of the masculine. And in response to this divine feminine, we are now getting this hyper masculinized, that's not even a word, like an Andrew Tate type of person that is pushing back, and it's basically feminism for men. And that to me looks a lot like what would be integrated into something like the beast system, because the beast system is much, it's a more masculine aspect to what we have now.
Well, that's like what Donnie Darkin used to say that you know, what we're looking at is the beast system overthrowing the harlot system.
Right.
The beast is killing the harlot. And it's interesting because
the harlot's still strong, man.
Well, we've gotten this. So feminine, or the divine feminine, is often associated with chaos. So you have chaos and order, right? The upward triangle, the downward triangle. So chaos is where creation happens, but it's also where destruction happens, right? It's those are the two polar ends of it. And then with the divine masculine, you have like maybe you could call it like order and maintenance, right? Where like maintenance is good. So the positive of the feminine creates, and then the positive of the masculine maintains. But then there's like order, which is like, you know, you're going into totalitarianism, like actual fascism, right?
That's what we're being asked,
right?
To ask for
in response to the negative aspect of the feminine, which was chaos. So we've gotten that chaos for all of this time, and it's interesting.
On the White House
Fake
lawn.
on the White House lawn. They're cutting your kids off, all kinds of, super cool like that. And now we've been given this desire for right, that was fed to us by the algorithm on Twitter, or it was suppressed initially, and now it's allowed to, that dialogue is allowed to take place. It's allowed to take place on Twitter. I saw you recently, Izzy, talking about Hyperborea, and I would like to get into that because I think that is important in this discussion. But now we're moving towards this hyper hatred of and this desire for a strong man. In fact, in very many ways, I think it's what won Donald Trump the election again. Right? It was you need that destructive feminine force of chaos, and then you need the order aspect of masculinity to come in, and that comes in the form of a strong man, somebody like him. So it's interesting to me that we all get Trump back in office at the same time that we're all on Twitter making positive memes.
Izzy, do you think the horror of Babylon was depicted by Taylor Swift not too long ago, and she just kind of like we've moved on? They always have one in place.
I don't know. That's kind of a hard question to answer, because that's sort of what Crowley's idea of Babylon is it's because all he did with his mythology was he just bastardized a bunch of biblical ideas, right? So it's the same, like Babylon is literally a sort of tweaked version of the Whore of Babylon. That's what it is. And it's so funny because all of these occultists are so unoriginal, right? That's what all of them do. But I wouldn't be surprised, and maybe Sabrina Carpenter's role is to just replace her in this sort of music realm, right? Because the way that I view the music industry is it is literally the modern day secular priest class that guises itself as secular, but it's constantly injecting these occult themes, these esoteric ideologies. So yeah, it could be that she's the physical representation of this deity for, kind of what you're saying, to bring chaos. I mean, we've been talking about it for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think there was a time when that character was Beyonce. Beyonce was that, the head. And then we literally saw that ritual take place on stage with the Kanye West Taylor Swift debacle, where Taylor Swift is in a white dress, which
humiliation ritual.
Yeah, kind of like a humiliation ritual, but it was it was her moment, right? So she's on stage in a white dress. She's accepting her award. She is humiliated because Kanye West gets on stage. It was the best music video award. Kanye goes, this had the greatest music video of all time, and it embarrasses her or shames her, humiliates her on the world stage. Then she goes out. She has a costume change. She comes back on the stage, and she is now the Scarlet Woman. She's dressed in red. And then Taylor Swift holds that down for, a decade, it feels like. And then maybe Sabrina Carpenter is just that character now.
There's a theory that we have, from Ed Mabry, when you're talking about the Antichrist, or maybe even all of these biblical figures, the Whore of Babylon, these people that are supposed to be in place for end times, he thinks that they are consistently in place because nobody knows the time or the hour. So there always has to be it has to be that guy. There's a person to fill the role of Antichrist, and right now that's probably Elon Musk or something like that, or Donald Trump. They're interchangeable. So these people are just in place, set there, and then when the moon doesn't line up, the stars don't line up, they go to the next person that's the correct age, and it's just a continual cycle of flesh.
That's so crazy you brought up Ed Mayberry, because I'm literally going through his catalog right now. I started it yesterday because his what he says is so on point. That's so funny. That's such an odd synchronicity.
He's been on the show 50 times, so it's not.
Yeah, dude. No, that guy rules, dude. But yeah, I could totally see that, and that makes complete sense. I think Ed Mayberry is sort of the key to a lot of my stuff tying in, and making a lot more, because there's a lot of loose ends. I do the really great research, and I have all of these really strong points, and now what I'm kind of trying to do is I'm trying to tie it all together with my own sort of esoteric explanation, in a Christian lens to kind of clean it all up. But
you got to talk to him. We can put you. Ed's a personal friend. He's on the show all the time. We'll put you in touch. I think you guys would make an excellent.
I watched shit out of that.
Hell
episode.
yeah, dude.
yeah, hell yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, sweet.
Izzy, I want to respect your time, but I want to ask you one more question.
I want to respect your time,
but I'm going to disrespect it.
No, dude, you guys are totally fine, man. I have as much time as you guys need. So
okay, so you were talking a little bit about Hyperborea, right? And it's interesting to me because so much of the MKUltra, we're talking about MKUltra, and we're talking about all these rituals, and we've not even talked about the. But here they are in 2025. It's back in a big way, and I think it's been orchestrated as such. And it's interesting because there's a lot of like sympathizing going on. We talk about it quite often. If you watch any amount of Europa, you're going to come out of the other end being like, oh, Weimar conditions require Weimar solutions, right? And to a degree, the history of World War II has been obfuscated. And so when you're lied to, sometimes you make a knee-jerk reaction, you go to the other side and go, then this must be true. So right now we're sitting in this place where everything is about like we're based, Hugo Boss made a hell of an outfit.
He did.
They were a problem. Maybe they were. But then all of a sudden, like, is the man, right? And it's fascinating to me that we're moving towards this thing where we're clamoring for a strong man. They're engineering the race war. Do you see this, or am I tripping? And does your Hyperborea discussion fit into that in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, no, yeah, I see what you're saying 100%. And I think that, like a lot of what I have doing has transformed into explaining the esoteric side of pop culture. So, memes are a big part of pop culture, and the Hyperborean edits were like a really big thing for a long time. And it was like, oh, we're going to return to Europa, Hyperborea. I'm a blonde hair, blue eyed guy, like I saw a ton of those. And then you do the esoteric research, you do the digging, and you realize what it is. So Hyperborea is this sort of, it's like the Greek version of the Garden of Eden, kind of. It's the land beyond the north wind, right? And it's this sort of perfect place. That's what that's the ideology of it, right? Well, it's been co-opted and it's been turned into this sort of alt-right ideal, that has been it's a meme. It's been memeified, right? And you have these people and they're like, we return to Hyperborea, return to Hyperborea. It'd be so sick if we're the mammoths, and like all these stupid things. And what it really is like Helena Blavatsky, who, basically created Theosophy, which is the merging of Eastern and Western esotericism. And, again, what did she do? She rebranded it for a new audience, right? And, she created this Theosophy. And Theosophy, there was a thing called the Theosophy Society. It was led by a guy named Franz Hartmann and some other guy with the crazy German name. And actually, those guys influenced Rick Rubin's book. So there you go. But those guys resurrected Armanism and they resurrected Wotanism, and those esoteric ideas are what created the contemporary idea of Nazism and the esoteric and occult side of Nazism, right? Well, Blavatsky, they created the Theosophical Society. Blavatsky had her own writings. A lot of them were plagiarized and crazy other, a lot of other stuff. But she wrote about Hyperborea as well, right? But she had this idea that there are 7 iterations of humanity. She calls them the root races, but that's not really what it is. It's more of these ideologies of where humans came from spiritually, and there's 7 layers to it. The first being, essentially these like amorphous spiritual cells, and the last one being we are pure emanated beings of light, basically. She wrote and believed that we were at the fifth stage of this evolution. The 5th stage were the Aryans. That's what she called it, the Aryans. And I understand people are like, Aryans were actually real people. They were real in Proto-European. know that, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. Context, illiterate morons, don't know anything.
I'm so glad I asked this question.
No, Proto-European. They were actually Proto-Europeans. You think I don't know that? I'm so much smarter than all of you. So anyways, so she wrote her definition of the Aryans, where they were the fifth iteration of this human spiritual evolution, right? Well, what were the second ones? The second was the Hyperboreans, okay? So to all of the people who are like, we need to go back and become the Hyperborea, reclaim Hyperborea, that you're literally describing like spiritually reducing yourself to like a puddle. Literally, that's like what it is. It's a complete psyop. So all of those people who are like, you know, what did we say earlier? What caused Lucifer to fall was pride, right? So all of these people who are trying to find this pride in this place of this racial identity. I understand it, dude. I'm a white guy. I totally get it. I totally get it. But to find it in a Hyperborean meme, which is literally a psyop to get you to worship and mythologize your own self into regressing back into this like Hyperborean being, is like so it's insane. It's like the craziest thing.
Isn't it like, okay, so it's understandable, right? Because for the last decade, we were talking earlier about how there's like been this divine feminine, and it's really been the chaotic side of things. And what has that done? Well, it's persecuted in not the harshest sense, but certainly to some extent masculinity. And in particular white men. So it's like, it's the ultimate primer. What you do is, for a decade, you go, white men aren't, white people cannot be victims of racism because there's a power dynamic, which is like, you literally have to change the definition of racism in order to get to that point. You have things like Black Lives Matter. You name the psyop, you name the fake subversive revolution that takes place that's funded by Soros or what the hell ever. And all it does is it builds resentment in white people. And then when white people have a cause, you turn around and you call them conquerors, you call them devils, you call them all this shit. So for a decade,
I have such a good, like, I'm watching you say this and I'm like, I should just clip selectively what you say.
Oh, please.
Put it online.
Take it out of context.
So right. Black Lives Matter, white people.
Yeah.
But that's it. White people are conquerors. So you do that for a decade, and then all of a sudden, we say this over and over again. I really got to think of a new analogy, but you crack the release valve on it in the form of Twitter, right? Where all of a sudden the dialogue can take place, and then you probably subversively inject concepts of Hyperborea. You inject this and then you allow it to, organically bloom beyond that. But at its inception, the person that injected it was some nefarious asshole who
100%.
was seeking to subvert. So it's understandable.
So yeah. So like, think about that, dude. Like a decade of just like, man, I'm a piece of shit. This is, so you're so frustrated, and then you finally see this like meme that like you're like, I get it. Oh my God, this is it. And what it is it was created by some girl with blue hair who knows what Hyperborea is. And then you're like, this is it, guys. We're going to return to Hyperborea, dude. And she's laughing with her, she literally has crystals hanging from her ceiling. And she's like, look at these idiots, dude. Morons. See, they are stupid. That's literally what it is.
So what I'm wondering then is like, where does this all go? Because I've been saying for some time that it's going to leave Twitter and it's going to start to happen at the dinner table. And I do believe that that's what we're looking at when we see like the Sydney Sweeney has good genes, or we see like the Dunkin' Donuts viral commercial where it's like the white dude with blonde hair and blue eyes. Or there's even like another one, I forget what it is, but there's 3 major companies that have released commercials that seem to have these like white supremacy undertones. And that tells me that the conversation has entered the mainstream. It had to simmer in the underground, which was Twitter for some time, and now it is leaving that place and it's going towards the big screen. And so I don't know if the end goal is, it feels like, he said, very Tim Pool of me, like, we're gonna have a race war. Like, I don't know if it's the race war is the end goal, or if it's to get people to pride before the fall, want to go back to some Hyperborean puddle, or, like you described it here. Do you think that's what it is, or is there something more that we're missing?
See, that's the thing, right? Like I don't know the future. Like I don't know that. I just know if you know where something is from, you have a better idea of where it's trying to take you. So if I can, do this research and come to this understanding that something as innocuous and as silly as this meme that literally, I don't care what people say, those memes have activated people, right?
Mhm.
And really what it's doing is you're actually unknowingly, subversively degrading your soul. And, and if you think that's intense, that's too intense. Okay, whatever. Like, so it's like, if they're doing it on these small levels of memes that do have these real spiritual implications, how far are they willing to take it? How far are they willing to push, these boundaries and these lines and everything else? I don't really know. I don't know what the next thing looks like, but I know that if even the memes are being tainted with esoteric, subversive, occult magic, I'm sure it's in a lot more places than we could even imagine, right?
I mean,
So
memes were already tainted since like 2016. The whole Keck thing that got Donald Trump elected is like that goes back to ancient Egypt. So it's like,
yep.
I'm looking at them as you're saying this guy Chris Gabriel is the host of Meme Analysis, and I'm sure that he's has a better understanding of this than we do.
Yeah. So yeah, no meme. Like, so what Chris Gabriel does is one thing he does is he breaks down memes and he discusses the, memes. Essentially, the reason we get memes is because they have archetypal truths within them. That's like sort of what the memes, and he explains that and he breaks it down. But the reason he was hired by Rick Rubin is obviously because these memes and these archetypal truths are now leaking, and they're leaking into reality, and they've always been in reality, right? And yeah, I mean, it's just, I personally think, like, if you want to know what reality is going to look like in 10 years, go on 4chan right now. Like 2016 4chan, it's everything we're talking about today that's like out there, and I think people really don't understand how the occult operates now, because I didn't until I really started researching all of this stuff. Dude, it's like, it's in the memes, it's in these silly symbols you see, it's everywhere. It's really crazy.
I was watching some dude talk about like what a sigil is, and he's like, you take a concept and you reduce it, like let's say you write it out, like if it's a phrase, and you take certain elements of that phrase and you sort of build a symbol out of those, and you keep reducing it until it's simplest form. And what's interesting about that is then you're left with this symbol that speaks quite a bit of information, right? Even though it's a simplistic little symbol. And Elon Musk tweeted recently where it was like a Michael Jackson leaning over Anakin Skywalker saying, "Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?" And this is in reference to his new Grok AI anime chick named Annie, which ANI means I am. And we've talked about this before. I think they're trying to breathe life into AI through magic by getting a bunch of dudes to goon to an anime representation of Grok. But anywho, he says memes are the most densely information-packed means of communication that we have, or something. Like I'm paraphrasing, I'm bastardizing it, I'm sure, but we're dealing with it on a daily basis. We're a culture that loves memes, and that is true. It's like these are the most densely packed means of communicating information that we have, probably, full stop. And
it's a hieroglyph.
It's a hieroglyph, yeah, and we don't even recognize it, but we're engaging with it all day. Izzy, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I want to ask you one last thing. I think it's before we go. I know we talked about some, it's a great question. We've talked about some pretty harrowing. Did I make that word up? Harrowing is a good word. That's a weird word.
That's a good word. Yeah, that's a real one.
Some harrowing topics here on this episode, Izzy, and with some pretty dark implications. I just want to ask you: are you having fun?
Oh yeah, I love this, dude. I'm having a lot of fun, man. This is sick. No, it's like there's nothing more fun than the truth, right? Like the truth is God. That's pretty fun. Like I don't know. I really love the idea of making these things known to such an extent that people don't even know the origin of them, right? Like a great example. The Mr. Beast, you guys know Mr. Beast is like owned by Night Media and all that stuff. Do you guys know of that? I was talking about that like 4 years ago on this little podcast I ran with my cousin called Duh Heads. And I found a thread on 4chan of that. Like it was posted and I saw it and I screenshotted it and I brought it to my weekly podcast, Duh Heads, like the next day. And we talked about it. And that idea is now been proliferated around the internet to such an extent. It is now like an archetypal truth. People just know this. That is like what my goal is to just make this known. And it's like the guy who invented the stop sign. No one knows who invented it, but it's just out there. That's like what this is. Like, just let everybody know what's going on, what's really going on, what I think. Make some fun, cool songs about when I used to do cocaine and, maybe have a couple concerts and rock and roll, dude. And if anybody in the music industry ever wants to fight me, I train every single day. I'll beat the out of all of you, dude. Hey, train Izzy, MMA, baby.
Would you consider doing music at we have an event that we do. We just did the third one. It was headlined by, it's called Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove. We just had Sam Tripoli and Owen Benjamin, and it was an awesome time. Would you do music at our event, Izzy?
Dude, I'd be super down. That'd be so sick.
How sick would that be? That'd be dope as hell. All right, we'll consider it a formal invite. We'll let you know when the next one's going to happen, and we'd love to have you over. One more time, Izzy, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, best place, if you want the full breakdowns, everything I do is fully sourced. It's on my Patreon, patreon.com/Izzy N Griffin. I'm dropping a video tomorrow about how the Joe Rogan comedy sphere directly mirrors the Royal Order of Jesters and Freemasonry.
That is the coolest I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's like a direct mirror. It's really crazy. Dropping that tomorrow. Yeah, I have free trials on there. My Instagram is at Izzy N Griffin. Yeah, YouTube at Izzy N Griffin if you want some samples of everything I do. And then I have music. You'll find me, Izzy N Griffin, somewhere. So,
man, keep in mind with that Joe Rogan idea and his group of minstrels. Joe Rogan introduced. I mean, yeah, I enjoy the show, but it is what it is. Keep in mind him introducing the ideas of DMT, mushrooms, float tanks, this kind of stuff, like getting you in touch with this astral realm or this, this underneath side of things. Because there's a little bit of David loves to say that Joe Rogan is the Laurel Canyon of today's, 100% pop culture. Yeah, so very interesting to see that, and then to see the comedians that are around him and that are pushed and what is being said. And again, I enjoy most of these guys. Like
same, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm suspicious, bro. What are you doing over there? It's weird.
Yeah.
Some weird stuff.
Well,
man.
I think we have to have Izzy back on sometime then on Joe Rogan in the most loving way.
I just want to know what you're doing over there.
What are you doing? Why are you doing CIA?
I agree.
Shit? Everybody should take DMT and dolphins. All right. Top, is that it? Is that all we got?
That's it, man. Izzy, thank you again for coming. Guys, thanks for hanging out. And as always, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We'll see you later.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real.
You can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see.